Welcome, everyone. Let's call this Thursday, November 1st, 2018, meeting of the Wichita-Sedgwick County Metropolitan Area Planning Commission to order, and we will start with public announcements.
Before we begin the agenda, the Wichita-Sedgwick County Metropolitan Area Planning Commission and the Wichita-Sedgwick County Board of Zoning Appeals would like to take this opportunity to welcome everyone to this public hearing. Copies of the agenda for today's meeting, the public hearing procedure, and Planning Department staff reports on all agenda items are available in the lobby of this conference room. The Planning Commission's and the BZA's bylaws limit the applicant on a zoning, subdivision, or variance application and his or her representative to a total of 10 minutes of speaking time at the start of the hearing on that item, plus up to 2 minutes at the conclusion of that hearing. All other persons wishing to speak on agenda items are limited to 3 minutes per person. However, if they feel that it is needed and justified, the chairman may extend these times by up to 2 minutes. All speakers are requested to state his or her name and address for the record when beginning to speak. When you are finished speaking, please write your name, address, and the case number on the sheet provided in the lobby. This will enable staff to notify you if there are any additional proceedings concerning that item. Please note that all written and visual materials you present to the Commission and the Board will be retained by the Secretary as part of the official record. If you are not speaking but you wish to be notified about future proceedings on a particular case, please sign in on that same sheet. The Planning Commission and the Board are interested in hearing the views of all persons who wish to express themselves on the agenda items. However, we ask that all speakers please be as concise as possible and avoid long repetitions of facts or opinions which have already been stated. For your information, the Wichita City Council has adopted a policy for all city zoning items. A copy of this policy is available in the lobby. The City Council relies on a written record of the Planning Commission hearings and does not conduct its own additional public hearings on these items. The decision of the BZA is final. Any appeal of a decision of the BZA is to district court.
Okay, moving forward, we will start with agenda item number 1, approval of the prior MAPC meeting minutes for October 4th, 2018. And I show Mr. Green as absent, so he will abstain.
My name was left off the present, so I was there.
Okay.
Move for approval with that change.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Johnson, a second by Mr. Klossmeyer. Yes, Mr. Green.
I need to have my last name spelled correctly.
You sure?
Who are you? Somebody else was here, not me.
That's what happens when you go south.
All right.
There's an E on the end of green.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Who do we have abstaining? Just Green.
Mr. Green.
Okay.
Green with an E.
Green with an E.
That's right.
Yes. All right, moving on to agenda item number 2, consideration of subdivision committee recommendations. Item 2.1, sub 2018 00112, revised one-step final plat for Village Charter's 3rd edition. Is there anybody from the commission that would like to hear that case? No? Is there anybody from the audience that would like to hear that case? Seeing none, we'll take that item on consent. Item number 2.2, sub 2018 00035, one-step final plat, the reserve at Sierra Hills, 2nd edition. Is there anybody on the commission that would like to hear that case? Seeing none, is there anybody in the audience that would like to hear that case? If seeing none, we'll take that item on consent. Item number 2.3, sub 2018 00036, one-step final plat for the Booze edition. Is there anybody on the commission that would like to hear that case? Don't make me laugh.
Not properly named, though.
Seeing none, is there anybody in the audience that would like to hear that case? Seeing none, we'll take that item on consent.
Move for approval of 2-1, 2-2, and 2-3.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Johnson to approve, a second by Mr. Green. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. On to agenda item number 3, public hearings, vacation items. Item number 3.1, VAC 2018-00024, city vacation of front building setback to allow for building construction on property zoned LI Limited Industrial. Is there anybody from the commission that would like to hear that case? Seeing none, is there anybody from the audience that would like to hear this case? Seeing none, we'll take that on consent.
Move to approve. Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Klossmeyer, a second by Mr. Hartman. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, moving on to public hearings. Item number 4, case number CUP 2018-00038, City New Community Unit Plan. Is there anybody from the commission that would like to hear that case? Yes, okay, we will hear that case. Agenda item number 5, case number CON 2018-00037. Is there anybody on the commission that would like to hear that case? Okay, we will hear that case. Agenda item number 6, ZON 2018-00044. Is there anybody on the commission that would like to hear that case? Seeing none, is there anybody in the audience that would like to hear that case?
No, 44.
No? Okay, seeing none, we will take that on consent.
We approve item number 6.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. McKay, a second by Mr. Warren. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Oh, did he?
All right, so going back to agenda item number 4, and we have Matt Williams to present.
Good afternoon, Matt Williams, Associate Planner. This is CUP 2018-00038, request to create DP 348, Lawrence's Addition Community Unit Plan. Currently, the site is 2 acres and it has LC zoning. It's located on the northeast corner of West University Street and South Seneca Street. The CUP included the following requests. All uses in the LC district, with the exception of nightclub in the city, shall be permitted. The development shall be limited to 160 square feet of signage along University Avenue with a max allowable height of 60 feet along that frontage. The CUP requests a front setback of 0 feet, a rear setback of 10 feet, and an interior side setback of 0 feet. And the CUP requests that screening fences/walls shall be per the Unified Zoning Code, except that architectural tile, faux masonry, metal, and other architectural materials shall be allowed components of the screening fence. Due to the site's location in the Delano overlay, the proposed development has been reviewed by the Delano Advisory Committee. The committee approved most aspects of the development, but they recommended that the proposed pole sign must meet the sign code for the underlying limited commercial zoning district. The advisory committee also recommended that the screening fence be allowed to consist of a lower section of cedar, a middle section of architectural tile, and a top portion of cedar. The adjacent zoning in the area is limited commercial and also single-family and multifamily residential. You will see a list of recommendations on page 3 in the staff report. Specifically, number 2 asks that a statement of need for signage along University Avenue shall be submitted for review by their Director of Planning, along with an analysis of sign visibility demonstrating that the proposed signage meets the stated needs. If the Director of Planning determines that the analysis warrants the proposed signage, the development shall be limited to 160 square feet of signage along University Avenue. The max allowable height along said frontage shall be 60 feet, and the design of the signage shall be approved by the Delano Design Advisory Committee with appeal to the City Council per the process outlined in the Delano Neighborhood Overlay District. Number 6 also asks that the specific screening design shall be subject to approval by the Director of Planning. This CUP did go in front of the DAB, and the DAB voted 10-0 to approve the CUP except for the request for the sign height. So their requested that it would stay at LC zoning per the Delano overlay. So the Delano overlay the Delano Advisory Committee recommended that it stay with LC zoning. So just for everybody's information, I'm going to say what that would include. Per those guidelines, the frontage along University Avenue would be allowed 2 signs at 25 feet in height or 1 sign at 30 feet in height with a max of 50 square feet of signage. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. I can show a couple of the images. This is the development property we're talking about right here. This is the University Avenue frontage where the proposed sign would be. You can see this is the outline of the Delano, or a part of the Delano overlay. This is the site plan showing the development on the property, and this is that University Street frontage down here. And then this is the CUP drawing. And then some photos of the property. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, let's go with Mr. Blick.
Question I have is just more of south of University, that's just all easement, that's probably KDOT easement, isn't it? So this will be the furthest property that will be exposed to the highway, pretty much.
Correct.
And there's probably, won't build anything south from University, it doesn't look like, because it's pretty much all this KDOT. Okay, that's a question I just had.
Okay,
Going back to the sign, is that 50 square feet per sign or 50 square feet total? 1 or 2? You said you have 1 or 2 signs.
For the limited commercial, that would be 50 square feet total.
Total.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Richardson.
Matt, absent the CUP, would they be allowed to have a nightclub here?
So with the limited commercial zoning, a nightclub would require conditional use. It's my understanding that the developer wants to make obvious that a nightclub will not be in the area, so they're adding that further stipulation into the CUP.
So the answer is they could not have a nightclub without additional approvals?
Correct, as it stands,
And
yes.
that's because of the adjacent zoning?
The residential zoning, yes.
Okay. So, all right, so we're not giving up anything they could already have.
Correct.
Green.
Yeah, Matt, I know there's been some discussion of a restaurant going in, I guess it's a restaurant since nightclubs are not allowed. It's called Tight Ends.
Yes.
Is that going to be considered a restaurant
Restaurant bar, I believe, yes.
or bar?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Richardson.
Maybe it's a question for the applicant, but since construction's substantially underway there, I'm confused about why we need 0 setbacks at a major entrance to the Delano district. Can you help me understand why the staff thinks that's a good idea?
Yeah, I'll let the applicant answer why they requested that. I think staff felt that the 0 lot line setback would be in accordance with kind of the district. But I'll let them answer why they're asking for that if they're not building to that.
Any other questions from the commission? If not, if owner or applicant would please come forward, state your name and address, and you'll have 10 minutes.
Levi Bond with Cobb Valley Engineering, agent for the applicant, 200 North Emporia, Suite 100. We're in agreement with staff comments except for on the signage. We would rather you guys just make the choice here. We've done some preliminary sign analysis. We don't have a finalized design because we don't know what we're going to be allowed, so we didn't go all the way through. but the 60-foot was requested to be visible over this tree line here. Largest trees there are close to 40 to 45 feet, so it'd give you a little bit of a buffer. The 160 square foot of signage is to allow for correct text height, to be able to be visible from this point where these lanes merge, so basically the start of the true frontage road. The text height by sign standards would need to be about 18 inches to be visible from that point. And with 3 to 4 businesses going in here, we felt that 160 square foot was an appropriate amount to ask for. Further that, to your guys' comments, 50 square foot would not be enough for a 2-acre development that we have here, especially with 2 restaurants potentially going in, and then possibly some small retail. As to the setbacks themselves, the 0-foot setback was requested because it is in accordance with the district. It's just what we applied with. If that needs to be changed, that can be changed as well. It's nothing that we're holding on to. And you're correct, we've started building at this point, probably 20% of the way. And then as to Mr. Green's question, yes, this is a restaurant. It will be over 50% food sales. It is not the other tight ends locations in Texas. They have a licensing agreement for the name, but the tight ends in Texas do not represent what the owner of New Friends LLC is trying to put in here. Other than that, I've talked with the owner a couple times, and they're just trying to be sensitive to the taste of the neighborhood and just want this to be a good addition down there. It's a good thing to finally get these 2 platted lots just developed. I'd be happy to take any questions at this time.
Questions from the commission? Mr. Florence?
How many signs will you be allowed along the Seneca?
Total of 400 linear feet, so there should be 2 signage allowances on that. Is that correct, Matt? Mr. Florence, I believe it's 2 allowed on there. Seneca.
Go to the
You'll need to
microphone.
go to the mic so we can record, gather what you're saying.
Right now, Mr. Florence, as we have for design plans, we have the one sign that we're talking about increasing the height on, and then we're also going to have a monument sign for the entire development here, and then I believe there's one more sign up here at this corner that we have proposed. There are 2 drive entrances off of Seneca into the development, so I believe that's all we have planned at this moment. We're not asking for any additional variance or changes on the sign code for Seneca.
Well, the signs along the highway, generally you're allowed, 20 feet above the highest rail?
Correct, and the reason that's not the case here by code is because we have this area retained by KDOT. Otherwise, it'd be 20 feet above the rail. Similar to that, the Genesis sign or the signs near Kellogg and West. That's how that one where the Verizon is. That's how they had that signed.
Other questions? Mr. Hartman?
Seneca being a major entrance into the Delano district, was there any consideration given to some kind of a gateway monument there?
Yeah, so right here, this subdivision, they're going to name the commercial development the Gates of Delano, and it's going to be a large monument sign right here at this corner. It's going to do shared frontage.
Mr. Foster?
Go back to the site plan, please.
Are you referring to the CUP drawing?
That one there.
This one?
Is that pretty much what's going to be done?
Yes, sir. The one main difference is there's not going to be a opening here anymore, and I believe there's one here. Let's see. I don't have it shown there.
So the 0-foot setback is really a non-issue.
It's a non-issue for us or the planning department, I believe.
Yeah.
Mr. Richardson?
So, did you say that zero setbacks are in an LC district? That's not code, is it? We need some
No,
help
it's
from staff here.
kind of a design guideline down in the Delano district, and that's where that's coming from. It's not per code.
The Delano overlay calls for a 10-foot setback along Seneca, which is the street side setback that staff has recommended at 10 feet. The front setbacks on this property yard, there's actually two frontages, one on the north and one on the south. The Unified Zoning Code and a CUP normally would require a 35-foot setback on both locations.
But the application is for 0.
That's correct.
Weren't the guidelines to the Delano district, didn't they want to try to eliminate the parking in front of the buildings?
Well, yes, that was a discussion that occurred with the Delano Advisory Committee, and ultimately they recommended this site plan here.
Mr. Richardson?
So would it be safe to say that the only real issue here is the sign?
Yes, sir. We'd like to get your decision on that. And as I said, we request the additional height to be seen over that tree row from the frontage road to increase traffic to the development. The size is so it is able to be seen from the frontage road where these two roads merge into one frontage road.
So the reason for the CUP is the sign. You don't have to have one because it's not 6 acres.
Correct. It is not required by code to have a CUP.
Questions from the commission? If not, is there anybody from the audience that would like to speak on this case?
Thank you.
Oh. Yeah, if you'll go to the podium and state your name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Hello, my name is Christopher Parashow. I live at 311 South Exposition Street. I'm about 3.5 blocks away from this location. When I'm also on the Delano Advisory Committee, which you mentioned earlier. The issue with us is the sign. It's larger than anything in the area. The next closest thing to it would probably be the ice rink. And I understand it is kind of an exception to the rule because of some electronic aspects to it and things like that. One of the other speakers might be able to speak on that more. When this first came up with regard to the restaurant itself, I started a petition against the restaurant. It's up to almost 600 people opposing the restaurant itself. Originally, Tight Ends was not part of the plan. It was supposed to be just a huddle house and a few other small retail businesses. And then somewhere around May of this year, Tight Ends came up as the main business in this location. And upon investigation, we found out what the other Tight Ends locations were. What he said about this being different than the other Tight Ends locations in Texas, that's the first we've heard of this. And the general manager currently has pictures on her Facebook page showing the uniforms are a lot like the ones down in Texas. The only thing she's not showing yet is the lingerie competition and lingerie night, probably for obvious reasons. The sign itself, I was going out and just kind of exploring along Kellogg. There's 3 or 4 signs between Central Business District and Seneca exit itself that are signage from KDOT, including the big blue sign that they let people buy space on that will obscure any sign that they put up in that location. They would have to probably go up to somewhere around 200 feet and about 3 times as big as they want to be able to be seen by traffic before they're past the actual exit ramp. So I'm not sure if even the sign that they want is adequate for what they're trying to say they want it for. I believe the ice rink sign is actually taller and larger in surface area. So approving the sign may or may not really even be beneficial with regard to what they're saying they want. If anybody has any questions about what I've brought up, I'm more than happy to answer them.
Thank you. Is there any questions from the commission? Mr. Richardson.
Well, along with the ice rink sign, I think we probably should point out that's a quasi-public facility for the ice rink, and
Correct.
that's one of the reasons it has an exception
Right.
for the sign. And, you know, as a editorial comment, it would seem like a sign like this ought to be advertising what's going on in Delano, not just a separate business here if we're going to exceed the sign requirements. So, thank
I
you.
agree.
Any other questions from the commission? If not, thank you.
Thank you.
Other presenters from the audience? We'll just state your name and address, and you have 3 minutes.
My name is Vincent Hancock. I live at 406 South Vine. I am the president of the Delano Neighborhood Association. I also serve on the committee with Chris. I want to speak to the ice rink sign for those who may not have been on the commission at that time. The ice rink sign was larger than required by code. It was approved with 2 stipulations. One was that they split the sign slightly so that the LED panels would still be visible to Kellogg, but not be washing light in the middle of the night back towards the residences that's right next to. The other aspect was because that sign is so adjacent to Kellogg, it doesn't present any problems with what we'll call the viewing angle. As you're driving along the road, you can see it easily. It's right there next to it. One of the things that we had discussed that becomes difficult, even if you're seeing it from Kellogg Drive, is the fact that there is such a significant KDOT easement that the sign becomes significantly outside of your core peripheral vision. And we're not sure if that's the best use of their sign dollars, is to put a sign way on the outside. Kind of echo the fact that we've got a wonderful KDOT sign, the blue sign that you can say, hey, if you want to get to a gas station, there's one a quarter mile away, one a half mile away, and it could easily be some space purchased on that sign to say, our restaurant's right here as well. I think from a neighborhood aspect, they could definitely say, now that you've made it to Seneca Street, this is where you turn to get in. I just don't know if it's that practical to have a sign that says, we want to be seen from everywhere. Back in the day, we had a restaurant that was looking to locate north of Quick Trip, and they wanted a sign that you could see from Kellogg. And we all said, no, that's way too big. So we've got some issues with the size of the sign. And speaking even of the electronic aspect, the ice rink said, anytime you want to put something on our electronic sign that benefits the neighborhood, just come and let us know. So that made a significant exception to what we have today. I'll stand for any questions.
Questions from the commission? Mr. Foster.
Can you tell us, I've read the staff report here. I want to make sure there's an understanding of what materials are going to be on the screen fencing. What's your understanding are going to be on that screen fence?
As the code is written, metals and plastics are not allowed to be used in screening. And you guys know very well that in most cases, screening is masonry. Based on the designer's wishes, they said, we've got some newer materials available, and we thought that those materials had the visual appeal that would still work the same as if it was a masonry wall or screen. So we're completely fine with them using these newer materials, and there may be an opportunity, although it will take some time, to reevaluate, can some types of metals and some types of plastics be used in screens in the future? That would require a change to the entire zoning code, which is entirely out of the scope of our discussion today.
Second question, have the Delano folks been involved with the design of this gateway or their input?
Not so much. I have started a ball rolling on that. I believe that there's an opportunity to tap into some creativity of the people in the neighborhood. Gates of Delano is somewhat generic. It's nice that it has the word Delano in it, and I am basically issuing a call to our neighborhood to say, let's come up with a better idea and present it to them. And if they're looking at it square in the face, they go, you're right, this is a much better idea. I'm sure they'll be willing to work with us on that. It's, if you've driven by Friends University, you'll notice that all 4 corners of Friends University clearly say, hey, you've arrived, this is us. I expect this sign to be very similar in design. And the wording, as long as it's not 10 paragraphs long, I'm sure we can make something that's 2 or 3 words that'll fit, that will be. This is one of the most obvious entrances to our neighborhood, and that is part of our upcoming Delano improvement plan is to make sure that people realize this is not just where you go to get to the museum district. This is the place that you want to be.
Thank you.
Mr. Hartman.
Do you have any other concerns other than the signage today?
That is our primary concern. Since there is a elephant in the room, the people at our September Neighborhood Association, we had some that were for the content of the business, some that were against, and some that could care less. And because of that, I said it was inappropriate for the Neighborhood Association to take a position. And plus, that is outside of the scope of what your board is able to do. That is outside of the scope of what the City Council is able to do.
Any other questions from the commission? If not, thank you. Other presenters from the audience? You'll state your name and address, and you have 3 minutes.
Hi there, I'm Sarah Smarsh. I live at 201 South Oak in Delano. I spent part of my childhood in Delano. I'm native to this area. I've lived in some big cities, but I came back to Wichita to be part of its growth and its development and all the excitement that surrounds specifically the Delano neighborhood, but also the entire city. The previous speakers spoke to the questionable necessity of the sign and the perhaps even silliness of it. And I want to talk a little bit about just what the sign would represent to the area and for our broader goals as a city. Living in Delano, most of us are quite excited about the business development going on. I know a lot of longtime local business owners who are right there on Douglas, Chisholm Trail, who are working hard to cultivate a sense of community and thriving business and growth in that area in conjunction with the city's efforts along the river to activate the Arkansas and make that entire place a family destination that is essentially connected to our downtown by a new pedestrian bridge corridor. And I just find this the potential for one of the entrance essentially to our neighborhood from the major artery of this city to be essentially an advertisement for a business that I know we're not here to debate the merits of, but would essentially send a signal about the opposite message that, as far as I'm concerned, Delano is about. So that this business involves the objectification of women is, I understand, apart from the decision about the sign, in terms of legality and code, perhaps. But I do think that it is your responsibility with your vote to think about the broader interests of the city and the neighborhood, and what a yes vote versus a no vote would represent. And to my mind, a yes vote is kind of shooting ourselves in the foot about saying like, oh, Delano is the great new thing for the city of Wichita, and now our welcome to that neighborhood is going to be a giant sign that says tight ends. I find that insulting and offensive as someone who has invested in the neighborhood. I bought a 100-year-old house about a year and a half ago and have been fixing it up with my Wichita native carpenter father. And I'm just here as a resident to say, I don't represent the neighborhood association, and so I'm happy to say what I think about the bigger picture, which is I'm sure they would like a 60-foot sign, no doubt. Sure would help their business, wouldn't it? I hope you vote no. Thank you.
Any questions from the commission? Okay, seeing none, is there anybody else in the audience who would like to present on this case?
Over here.
You'll state your name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes.
My name is Liberty Kleeman. My address is 12201 East Tipperary. And I actually have no prepared statements, and I don't live in Delano. I'm not a part of any of their committees or advisory boards. I have a family. We live on the east side of town at Central and Greenwich. And when I found out that this hearing would be happening today and what it would entail, I wanted to be here. I own a business here in town. My offices are at the 200 Garvey building. And my son plays every summer in the Delano Summer Orchestra. And we frequent the Delano district as a family. And my employees eat there almost every day for lunch. So we frequent it as a business owner and employer. And I would also urge you to not vote the variance for this sign. As a mom, I think also about that being the main gateway to the Delano district and area. And when we drive there as a family, we're there to go see Botanica or the Wichita Art Museum. And I just feel like a 60-foot sign for tight ends, which if you've not visited their Instagram feed, I encourage you to. I went to this, doing a little bit of research, I went to the owner's Facebook page where it did happily invite me to like the Instagram page, and I was horrified that this business was going to be anchoring the gates of Delano. So I would assume that all of the fans of strip clubs and spaghetti buffets are going to think this is a home run, but I think it really cheapens the area and the work that they've done over the last several years. I also went to look at Delano's Turn, which is a couple of documents that were put together to kind of lay out what the vision is for this area. And this type of business, this type of sign was not mentioned anywhere in the vision that we have for this neighborhood. If people are saying that it's going to be a sign that's similar to what you would find at Kellogg and West, well, that's absolutely not what we want for the gateway to Delano. I don't know. You think about Delano, you think about the culture, the history, one of the most established neighborhoods in the city, and I just don't see a 60-foot sign for tight ends as being a part of that. I think Mayor Longwell had mentioned that we have one chance to do it right in this development and all of the actions that are going on. We have one chance to do it right. Let's not cheapen it with a 60-foot sign at the gateway to our most storied and cultural neighborhood. Thank you.
Any questions from the commission? Okay, seeing none, thank you. Is there anybody else from the audience that would like to speak? Yes, if you'll step forward and provide your name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes.
My name is Becky Elder, and I am the Amica Scola at the Northfield School of the Liberal Arts at 1813 West University. And 5 years ago, we were a business in question about whether our presence was suitable in the Delano district. And at that time, I was fully immersed in the culture of the place, having actually chosen the Delano district for its beauty, for its historic value, for the ability to convince potential parents that we were in a very high-minded place next to a university to elevate the conversation about cultural and societal issues in the city of Wichita, in which we very much wanted to participate. And at that time, we were granted an invitation to that wonderful area. I considered it a profound privilege to move into the Delano district with my small school and my small effort to educate children both from the neighborhood. By the way, we have 3 children in our population of 42 students who walk across the street. One of them walks across Seneca to get to our school. There are numerous schools in the district, in the area, and as I was granted the invitation and I accepted the great privilege, it became an understanding that signage was a huge issue, that the place itself spoke loudly in its care, the carefulness that the residents took to live in the place. I had a reason to give signage a big thought because I'm a school. I would like for the neighborhood to know I exist. I would like to entertain my ability to meet the needs of children in the neighborhood. That's one of the huge purposes. But as a board of directors of the Northfield School of the Liberal Arts, we decided no signage. We would get to know our neighbors, we would get to live in this place with the people that had been there before us, and we would take time to prove ourselves. I ask you as voters on this issue to decline this request, eliminate the sign, require of people coming into existing cultures the reverence to obey and to integrate as opposed to impose themselves.
Ma'am, your time is up. Do you need
Thank you.
additional time? Is there any questions from the commission? Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else from the audience who would like to speak on this case? Okay, if not, we'll bring it back to agent or applicant for 2 minutes rebuttal. I love that sign.
She shows up to a lot of these
Levi Bond, agent. Quite a bit to go over here. First of all, Mr. Patricia, I'm sorry that you had not heard specifics on this before. I would like to, I know the business isn't up for debate on this CUP here, but I'd like you to know that lingerie contests, strip clubs are not allowed in this development. It's been made clear to us from Scott Knable and the planning department that those are not allowed as stands or with this CUP. And they have not developed their employee dress code yet as of last time I talked to the owner. Well, I apologize, but I can only talk to the owner, and there's nothing set in stone yet. They're not open for business. Also, as to your points about the ice rink being taller and larger, it needs to be taller and larger for the ice rink sign as it is by the overpass. That's the main discrepancy between there. People are going 80 down Kellogg. I know you're supposed to go 60, but they're going 80, and it has to be visible above the guardrails and the highway itself. Mr. Hancock, I know that you brought up the viewing angle on that sign. We've also looked in that. And then from the point where we were estimating we need 160 square foot of signage, which would be here, it would be within the effective visibility triangle. It's 15.9 degrees, and according to, I think that was the Federal Highway Administration, that it is an effective viewing angle of 20 degrees, and your peripheral vision is truthfully 100 degrees is what they rate it as. And then it's also, with the 60 feet, will clear the trees and remain at that distance within the vertical viewing angle. So those are kind of the thoughts, bringing it back to the sign of why we chose that size and that height. And as...
Sir, your time is up.
Okay.
Thank you. So any questions from the commission? Mr. Foster?
What would be the orientation of the sign? Is it going to be north-south or east-west?
It'll be visible from the Kellogg frontage road, so it'll be perpendicular to that. I think I'm too far over. So it'll be running north-south, visible from the east to west directions.
Thank you.
Other questions from the commission? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Blick?
Bill, maybe you can help me out with this and understand. How's this any different from like the Crackle Barrel sign that's just right down the street that they just put up? They have a sign that's on Tyler, and then they'll also have the big tall sign that's out by the highway. Is it going to be about the same height as what that is right now? Do you know?
Yeah, this proposed sign would be about the same height, significantly smaller than a number of the signs that are in both business districts that are either east or west of the Delano neighborhood. One of the reasons that staff has recommended what we do is that we have the same concerns about whether or not the height and size that is proposed really will accomplish the benefit of being seen from Kellogg in time to take either exit on Seneca. And we really don't want to go through this exercise again. So that was the reasoning behind staff's recommendation. I might also mention something that Dale and I have been talking about. A number of the speakers have been concerned about what the content of the sign says. That is, would be a First Amendment violation were we to factor in what the face of the sign says. We really need to consider the overall aesthetics of whether or not a sign in a location like this where there are no other tall signs in either direction for a significant period, the character of the neighborhood, which is, while there are some businesses at the intersection of Kellogg and Seneca, it's a relatively small business district overall, and predominantly that interchange is a residential area. Those were the factors behind the staff recommendation.
Mr. Foster?
Dale or staff, you could help on this one. I'm trying to find in here, does this go, the site plan goes back to the Delano committee, does it not? The final site plan, or has that already happened?
The site plan has been reviewed and approved by the Delano Advisory Committee already. What the recommendation is that the sign itself would be, because the Delano Advisory Committee recommended signage per the LC district, which is different than what the Delano overlay requires. It requires something even less than what the LC district allows in terms of height and size.
But what I'm curious about is how is it to be ensured that they would have input on this gateway?
Oh, on the gateway sign itself, the gateway that was shown on the gateway that the applicant mentioned in their presentation was shown on the site plan and the elevations that the Delano Advisory Committee has already approved. I think what the president of the neighborhood association was indicating is that they would like to have the opportunity to ask the developer to, make some considerations to the neighborhood, but I don't think that's anything that the city could require.
Thank you.
Based off what I've heard today, and then based off of Delano's approval and the neighborhood association, I would actually say we make a motion to approve per staff's recommendation as written.
Second. Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Blick and a second by Mr. Daly. Mr. McKay.
This is a question for staff. Do we have the right as a commission to say that sign can only be at certain areas? Like, for example, he keeps talking about he wanted it so height so you can see it on Kellogg. Well, if you're looking for that sign on Kellogg, you're going to run into somebody because 54 turns at that place to go across Seneca. The exit deal, you won't even be able to see a sign. I don't care if it's 200 feet in the air.
Well, that's the kind of analysis that the staff recommendation is asking for, is a visual analysis of what the intention is of the sign. The mention that was made today by the applicant about having sign visibility from the exit ramp once you've already made the exits, the first information that I realized that was their goal. So if that is the goal, then we'll look at that. If it's visibility from the highway itself, we'll look at that as well.
Mr. Foster.
I would offer a substitute motion. A week ago at the Bi-States Planning Conference, one of the presentations stressed the importance of developing sense of place within areas to be economically viable and fit in with the neighborhood. So I would make a substitute motion that follow staff recommendations, except that the signage would meet the current code requirements for the zoning.
Okay, I have a second motion with a second, a substitute motion with a second. Sorry, I couldn't think of that word. And Mr. Richardson, you had a question? Or
No, that's fine.
What's the difference? Both saying the same.
No.
Well, no, the difference would be that, Mr. Foster, can you restate your motion?
Staff recommendations we followed except for the one item that the signage requirement, the height that we're talking about would meet the current zone or the zoning.
Current zoning.
Which is how many?
Which would be what?
I'm recalling 35 feet, is that correct?
It's 25 feet
25.
and 50 square feet.
Yeah.
No, got a question.
And that was the recommendation of the District Advisory Board, basically, is what you're recommending.
What is the staff recommendation?
staff recommendation is that that there be a sign analysis submitted that documents the need for a taller and bigger sign than what the code allows, and that design be approved by staff based on that analysis up to 60 feet in height and 160 square feet in size, and that if staff, and that the Delano Advisory Committee would review the design of that sign and staff's decision, and were the Delano Advisory Committee to not agree with that the final decision would go to City Council.
Mr. Richardson.
Based on current zoning, does the Delano overlay is even more restrictive than the current zoning? So how does that play into
The current Delano
CUP is?
overlay.
Yeah, what I understand that the CUP does is essentially negate the zoning and the Delano overlay. Back to Mr. Foster's motion, he's saying current regulations, does that include the Delano overlay?
I'm comfortable if it just meets the zoning as opposed to the overlay in this case. This is unique.
Yeah, okay, and again, I would support that for the following reasons. There's no reason for community unit plan here. It's only two acres in size. It's far less restrictive than the current zoning, so I'm not sure why we consider a CUP. I think we set a dangerous precedent saying that every business along Kellogg with 150 feet of frontage requires a 60-foot sign. That's where we're headed here, is that the next guy over, if the zoning gets changed, wants a 60-foot sign. And frankly, it's not in character with the Delano development. The city just announced we're going to spend $70 million on a new development with a ballpark and everything else. Again, if there's a sign there, it ought to be developed by the city, which advertises what's going on in Delano. It just doesn't make sense to me that we would do this. That the only freeway entrance to Delano is this one. Everything else has to come in off a side street. So for that reason, I'll be supporting the substitute motion.
I'll be supporting the substitute motion also, but I think that we need to take into consideration that there's a different nature to this as it comes in off of Seneca versus what you see of what most of Delano is. When we think of Delano, we think of Douglas Street and what's going on and how close the businesses are to the street. And so there's a different character and a different feel for that aspect that is not the same as you come across on Seneca. So I think that generally speaking, a larger sign, something that makes it easier for a business to succeed there, because this is not going to be drawing off of the Delano name. In my opinion, this is not. It's not the same. It's not the same thing. So, but I think that the signage, the motion that Mr. Foster made, is a reasonable compromise to that.
Any other discussion? If not, all in favor of the substitute motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
No.
Okay, so we have Mr. Green and Mr. Daly opposed, and Mr. Blick. Can we have a show of hands? Yes.
Green, Daly,
Green.
and Blick, is that correct?
Green, Daly, and Blick. Yeah, 10-3. Okay. Moving on to agenda item number 5, and we have Mr. Yearout here to present.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Dave Yearout with staff. This is conditional use case number 2018-37. Request from HMH Real Estate, the owner, through Cow Valley Engineering, the agent, for a modification to a previously approved conditional use. The intent is to modify the activity occurring on the property located at 10303 West Central. This particular drawing shows the current zoning of the property. We've outlined the subject property in blue. Maze Road is at this location, and this is West Central, to give you an orientation of where we are. As you can see, there was a previous conditional use approved on this property in 2012. That particular conditional use is outlined within the staff report, including all of the conditions that were identified as a requirement with that conditional use in 2012. This is an aerial of the property as it exists pretty much today. You can see the building at this location, is my understanding at the time, it was a oil lube type facility with a paved parking around a portion of the overall property. You can see it's not quite completely rectangular because the plating activity that occurred previously. The orientation of the property with relationship to the future land use plan. This is the proposed new site plan. I'm going to jump ahead just for a second and show you the approved site plan that was done in 2012. I think you got a copy of that with the staff report. There was a plan at that time to include additional parking area that was to be paved and improved with a limitation that there would be no activity outdoors to the south. And as obviously, if you've been out by the property or you can see from the aerial, that never occurred. This is what has been proposed today, in that they are requesting to fence a larger area beyond where it's currently paved, with the idea that this area would be used for screened vehicle and equipment storage as a use. As we outline in the staff report, that is not an activity that's permitted by right in the LC zoning, which is on this property. It would actually take GC zoning to do that. We don't have the ability to add that activity through a conditional use. So what we are doing is recommending that that this be approved, but subject to new conditions in identifying the fact that it be developed in conformance with the requirements of the zoning code, with the exception, as noted in the conditions herein. Outdoor storage is number 2, is in vehicle storage yard, as defined by the zoning code, is not prohibited or not permitted. That the drainage issues be addressed for any future development, and that all the previous conditions that were in existence for Con 2012-033 or 03 remain in effect, and that a revised site plan be provided to address that stuff. You also were given material at your desks that I think some of the people that are in the audience want to speak to. They provided some of that information, so we do have some concerns from neighbors that will be addressed as well. So I'll be happy to answer any questions.
From the commission, Mr. Richardson.
Dave, I'm a little confused about if we approve according to your recommendation, how much of this site will be required to be paved, number 1, and number 2, how much screening will be required, and what are the materials that will be required for the screening, and how high will it have to be?
Well, there's already, and I can show, I didn't show the pictures.
Yeah, I've seen that the aerial shows
Yeah.
that not much of it's paved today.
Yeah, not, well, and you can see there's a masonry wall on the south property line, and there is already an existing one on the east side of the property. So the screening material there is already in existence.
Okay.
The plan would be not to enlarge anything, and I don't think they're requesting, they are requesting a larger area, but we're saying you can't do outdoor storage at all, even as a screen, so.
To answer your question, all surfaces that the vehicles are parked on have to be paved.
So any display or any parking of vehicles, even if they're there to be worked on, would have to be paved?
That's
Yes, that's a current requirement of the code.
Hartman?
Does that mean that they're in violation with what they're doing?
Yes. There was notice of violations submitted through the code enforcement office that I think kind of triggered the application that we had before us. But it's been an issue for some time, and there were complaints turned in to the code office. Enforcement was followed up on, and that's why we're here today.
There's also some concerns about the drainage. Do you know what the situation is now with drainage, where it goes to? And if we're gonna add additional paving, that obviously is gonna increase the runoff. So
That's why the condition in there is that they address the stormwater issues, even with normally it would be 1 acre of disturbed area that has to be, is the trigger mechanism under the stormwater ordinance, but even if they were to expand where they're displaying or parking, probably would not be a full acre of new activity, but we're asking that that be done to address the drainage issues. We've been hearing from neighborhood concerns that the drainage apparently moves through this area and works its way further to the south. I think the neighbors can address that much better than I do. And one of the concerns one of the phone calls I got was a concern that if they paved more area, it would increase and make the drainage problems in the area worse.
Mr. Florence?
Dale, I got a quick question. For all-weather surface, do you still recognize 4 inches of half-inch rock as the all-weather surface?
I thought that was only for storage, that if it was parking and traffic circulation, it has to be asphalt or concrete or some similar material, that rock is not acceptable.
Any other questions by the commission? If not, we could have owner or applicant please step forward.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I'm-
Mr. McKay.
Go ahead. I'm going to step down because I have property in this area. I'm not in a notification district, but after listening to this, I feel like I probably should step down because I do own property in this vicinity.
Mr. McKay.
Yes.
Levi Bond, Cobb Valley Engineering, agent for the applicant who is in attendance today. Like Dave said, we're looking for a site plan modification on this site. So, okay. This was the original site plan, which was for zoned for the conditional use for auto sales, who is vehicle equipment sales and services. They were originally going to have a paved lot out here to the west. Hunter Jenick, the owner of Jenick Rentals, or Hunter Rentals, is wanting to forego that parking lot and paved area. He wants to do a paved surface up here for equipment display out onto the street. And then this is probably poor wording back here. All of the equipment back here is also for rent or for sale. The serviced equipment's all going to be taken care of inside the building. Now to kind of laid out the background on it, we're in agreement with all of the staff comments, but we would like for the first recommendation to either be removed or modified. There's already a provision for approved surfaces within the conditional use. As it stands, all we're asking is for really site plan approval, and just to have the equipment for sale and for rent back here inside a screened area so nothing can just walk off.
Would that area back there be paved or unpaved?
As it stands now in the conditional use, they can do a similar surface because it's going to be just for the rental equipment for the staging area. So that'd be any approved surface by the planning department. That's for the current conditional use, and that would be on this site plan.
Click.
Just a clarification or confusion on my part. So in 2012, was this business was approved to have auto sales and then they changed their mind and that's why they're wanting to do this now, or is this something different?
Nope, two completely different businesses. Hunter Rents has been in for about a year now. About a year now. They're pretty new in the area. They were unaware of this site plan when they first acquired the property, and that's why they got out of compliance. But as soon as they were notified, they got with us, Caw Valley, to go ahead and try to get this amendment pushed through. They want to be in compliance, and they are going to go ahead and add more screening down on this south side, which they were unaware they needed to do to be in compliance. And I was also talking to Hunter beforehand when we got the protest letters, where there was some concerns about this east side, and we can add more screening on this side as well. We'll just do some more trees to wrap up to where that existing paving is.
Right now, it's masonry all the way around the whole.
Yes, sir, the masonry wall would still stay. In the original site plan, it required trees down here, and there's 3, I believe, instead of the 12 that are needed.
Richardson, because I'd seen him earlier.
Let's go through the recommendations here. There's 1 through 6. Which one are you disagreeing with?
Just number 1, we wanted to either read as, we believe it should be removed because there's already a condition within the original conditional use for approved surfaces, which is straight from the code that they're referencing. Let me go ahead and get to it and read it. It's
And I assume that would require less paving than number 1.
correct. So for their equipment storage, they would like to be able to use a rock or asphalt chipping or some other approved hard surface for the equipment rentals and sales to their display area. In their experience, they've done this before. The equipment will tear up asphalt, and then you have to mill it all up and re-pour it, whereas you can rework with the rock. Also, in a bunch of similar situations of equipment rentals, like John Deere and a couple of the other places around town, all of their equipment rental lots are gravel, and it's just an industry standard for them.
So go to the site plan that you're requesting, if you would. So all you're proposing to pave is that one strip at the top.
We're gonna pave here and here. If it's not within the screened area and it's shown as a surface, it's gonna be paved. It's just for the equipment that is for rental and for sale. They would prefer to have it stored on gravel from a longevity standpoint and from a financial standpoint, as they're a newer business, and that's a lot of paving
Again,
costs.
let me understand, the only paving going to be added are those 2 strips of
Right here.
paving. Everything else will be gravel.
It'll be an approved hard surface, whether that's gravel or the asphalt chips or some other surface, yes.
But not paved.
Correct.
Whatever the definition is of paving, I guess, compared to approved hard surface. I'm confused here.
Yeah, it's a little ambiguous because you could throw down 2 inches and seal it and it'd be a paving, but 4 inches of rock is not paving.
Dale, can you help us here? Or?
If the current conditional use says that the planning director gets to approve the surface, there's no way I'm going to approve rock for heavier equipment, because the code clearly says, and the way we've done in the past, rock has only been used for storage. If it is traffic circulation and parking, that's solid paving.
And we will have circulation here if they're successful in renting equipment. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Klossmeyer.
Yes, I was reading something on what was turned in here on the drainage. Apparently there's a little bit of problem right now with drainage. What's the plan for taking care of the additional water runoff and everything if you start paving some more?
We were unaware of the neighbors' concerns in those letters until right before this meeting, so I haven't had a chance to get to their statement. As it currently sits, water drains south or southwest. When we go in with whatever approved surface, it'll make sure that it goes into the approved drainage patterns with the plat. And if there's further concerns, I'm sure Hunter will also want to protect his property and go ahead and grade it however is needed.
Is it all supposed to drain to the west then?
I would have to pull up the drainage plan for the plat. Have not looked at it for this conditional use aspect.
Thank you.
I read there were some concerns that there were larger vehicles being stored or on the site? Is that
Yeah,
what-
I saw the pictures that were referencing that, and there was a large trailer that brought in some of their equipment that's going to be for rent, but the equipment itself is smaller than the truck allowance, and then also those trailers aren't for rent. That's correct? That long trailer they have in the picture is not for rent. So it's not part of the business. It was just to get everything set up. It's not, they're not going to rent that out.
It would be removed from the site?
Yes, I believe it is already removed from the site, as well as the scrap metal and that car they were mentioning. It was taken off for scrap. It was just there temporarily before they could take care of it. That is not going to be part of their business. They're not dealing in scrap. It's all mostly tool rental and repair, and also some sales.
Richardson.
How long have the current owners operated this business here?
About a year. Since they got the property, and they opened half a year ago. About 6 months ago.
So, but they chose not to make improvements until they got a citation.
Well, they were wanting, this was their original plan, to go ahead and do this. They were getting everything set up, getting their business operating, establishing cash flow, and then they were going to go ahead and stage this area back here for the equipment that's for sale and rent.
Thank you.
Other questions from the commission? Thank you. Is there anybody from the audience that would like to speak on this case? Okay, if you'll.
Thank you.
Thank you. Step forward and state your name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Joyce Rush. I live at 10241 West Taylor, the street and cul-de-sac directly to the south of the business. We, as the property owner impacted by this business, and all of our property owners on Taylor Street, want to vigorously oppose any variance to this limited commercial code on the property. The business is not covered by this code, is not in compliance now, as all the pictures will show you. Also, the current 6-foot fence does not conceal their storage tanks or any of their equipment from the neighbors. The houses directly to the south, the one directly behind the wall and mine, are valued at $180,000 to ours over $300,000. We are going to be greatly impacted in a loss of value on our homes with this business. In addition, if you look at their driveway, it is extremely close to Mays Road and Central. There is a very bad sightline because of the hill coming from the east. When they move the large trailers and trucks out of there, especially at the rush hour from 7 to 9 in the morning and 4 to 6 in the evening, the traffic is so heavy on Central. It's a traffic hazard. They have the one driveway. You cannot see when you're coming from the east. And somebody's going to have to move those backhoes. If it's not their trailer, somebody's going to have a large truck and trailer. And they do have the large truck and trailers on the property now. They have known that they had to have known they were not in compliance, because until we complained, they didn't make any effort to change it. The conditional use permit that was granted in 12 was issued to the prior owner, which we sold our property to, Mr. Norris. It was not acted on in the 5 years since that was approved, which we also protested. Also, the screening that was required when you approved the zoning was not put in place. And Article 8 of the Unified Zoning Code states that if it's not done within 1 year, it nullifies that variance. In addition, there's a terrible noise disturbance from 7 to 8 when they open, and on and off during the day. You know, you have beeping of backup engines on heavy equipment. It disturbs the peace and quiet of the neighbors that are very close. We respectfully ask that you do not approve this variance, and note that they have always violated, ever since they've gone in, the variance code. The worst hazard to me is I'm sitting on my front porch looking across that wall, which is 6 feet, but I can certainly see everything. And they have these massive storage tanks.
Ma'am, your time is up. Would you like an additional 1 minute?
Just 1 more minute.
Okay,
The
thank
storage
you.
tanks are a hazard. They have propane, diesel, and gasoline in massive storage tanks that I have to look at from my front porch. Thank you.
Question, ma'am, could you stay there just a second for questions from the commission? Mr. Florence.
Drainage issues?
Do I have what?
Drainage issues.
I do not. Our property was, we had a well, which we used to own all the property on that corner. Our property had a well, which we had great drinking water. We were impacted greatly by the business across the street, and KDHE came in and made us put city water in. So I'm concerned about our garden, which grows the vegetables still with our well water, with what they might leak from their hazardous chemicals. But other than that, any other questions?
Mr. Blick.
Can you point on the map which one is your home? With the mouse? Sorry.
I'm sorry, I'm not used to this.
Yeah, just use that
Yeah,
mouse
maybe.
right there.
My husband is here, he can better speak to this. We have the acreage directly behind the larger home on, I don't know how to do it.
Yeah, right there.
Okay. Oh, I have a little bit of palsy, so this may not work with a mouse.
Move it around.
Yeah, my husband's gonna have to do this, I think. Okay, we have the house with a pool. Okay,
Don't hit the button.
you get back. Can my husband come up and speak to this? Because I have palsy on my hand and it will shake.
And I see that which one is. The question I
We
have
have the
is,
house with a swimming pool. We face north towards the rear of the business. We did own the one right next door, which is right behind the wall, which we have sold to another family.
there a retaining wall that's to the
There is a
west?
6-foot retaining wall, which
To the
we
west of your
we
property?
requested from Mr. Norris at the time when he bought the property from us.
So to the west of your property, is there a 6-foot wall also?
To the west, there is an 8-foot wall,
An 8-foot wall?
which
Okay.
we requested before the car wash went in.
So is the
It is 8 foot and it is much better than the 6-foot one.
question I have is since you know that property pretty well, the corner lot and the one that this proposed Hunter rents, is that property lifted up higher than your residential home?
Yes, it is.
So that's probably why you're seeing it more, is because it's up higher,
Yeah.
elevated higher. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions?
Mr. Richardson, did you have a question?
We knew where she lives. Thank you.
Is anybody else on the commission have a question? If not, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Person, if you'll state your name and address, and you have 3 minutes.
I'm James David Rush, and I live at 10241 West Central. When they bought or leased the property, I went up there in early February when they were starting to put things in it. And I asked them what their intention was and so forth, and they told me that, well, they're going to rent floor scrubbers and things like this. Mostly stay inside that building. And someday they hope to maybe have a skid steer. And at that time, I made them aware that they were not in compliance with zoning with even that. I owned the property prior to that. I sold it to Norris, and I knew what it was. As far as drainage, yes, we do have water coming down the hill, across behind those houses, and also we have water that runs through the south side back into the neighbor's yard, which then travels down the east side of Taylor. When we put the apartments in years ago, the planning or permitting department made us raise the far south side of that property up and take all of our drainage water to Central Street, which we did with parking and guttering. Today, everything is just like it was a month ago, 2 months ago. All the junk is still there. The engine blocks are still laying there, all that junk. And the fuel systems, and if any of you know anything about fuel storage tanks, the pumps run on 110 volt. They have to be wired direct to the panel with explosion-proof fittings to be compliant at all. They're not. They're running them with an extension cord running out there plugged into a short pigtail on the pump. Now, all this takes is for something to come through there when they happen to be pumping, and you arc that spark right there, it's Katie bar the door, and it's who the hell can run fastest, because you're going to have an explosion, or they wouldn't require this of all the other things. Nothing has changed since they've been told about it, talked about it, since your inspectors have been out there. In visiting with the city fire marshal, he informed me that you cannot have a propane tank larger than 125 gallons. I'm estimating that that one's 300 to 500 gallons that's sitting on their pad.
Sir, your time is up. Would you like an additional 1 minute?
1 minute.
Thank you.
Also, I was instructed that they busted into the sewer doing something. I don't know what they were doing. And that they made the repairs and had the city out there looking at it, inspecting it, and taking care of it. And I met with the city downstairs earlier this week. They pulled up and there has not been one permit for anything issued at that property since 2001. Thank you for your attention.
Sir, can you stay at the podium for questions, please?
Yes, I sure can.
Mr. Hartman.
The sewer you're talking about, is it a storm sewer or a sanitary sewer?
Sanitary sewer. There's sanitary sewer. They were digging back there and making an excavation for something. I can't attest to what they were doing there, and they supposedly busted into the sanitary sewer.
Mr. Richardson.
I wonder if you could show us, or one of the staff could help us with the apartments that were built that, where you had to change the grade and drain it all towards
Sure.
Central?
Right here. Get my fat belly behind it.
Those apartments right there.
Okay,
Yes.
so as I understand it, the grade was raised, so all that water drains to Central?
The central, yes, it was required.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the commission?
I wonder, again, with the mouse, if you could show us what your understanding of the drainage is now coming from that site. Again, Dale may need to
Sure.
help you there, but
Sure. Okay, whoops, I didn't want to do that.
man, that thing is.
Well, that was a good spot right there. Okay, all the drainage from probably midway here, all of this drainage around to here, drains right down here and goes right across here, down past the backside of this property and floods in behind this home. And a portion of it runs down here to Mays Road. There's a 5-foot strip of land in there that is no man's land. When the telephone company bought the property from my father, they wanted 300 feet. He owned 305 feet from Central Street. So there's 5 feet that was never anything done with. And when the folks bought the property, which we, the family owned for the car wash and the repair shop, they didn't take it. I mean, they didn't want it. They didn't buy it or anything. So there's a 5-foot strip that is no man's land that is filled full of weeds and everything else, and some water runs down through there to Mays Road.
Where is that 5? Can you show us with the mouse where that 5?
That 5 feet? Where's the map? Right there. See that yellow line?
Okay.
That's where that 5 feet is. That really has no bearing on it, other than it's.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, sir. If you'll provide your name and address, and you have 3 minutes. Thank you.
My name is Lori Knutson. I live at 10231 West Taylor. First, I have a letter I would like to read on behalf of my neighbors, Chris and Karen Putnam, who reside at 10303 West Taylor. And Chris is here today, but he is unable to read. He's legally blind, so I'm reading this letter on his behalf.
Yes, we do have that letter in the
Oh,
packet.
you have the letter?
Yes.
Okay. Chris, do you want me to still read it? They all have a copy of it? Yes. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, we have reviewed the staff report recommending approval of a request for amendment to the conditional use restrictions to allow modifications of operations and provide additional outdoor storage. Our concerns are, although this parcel and a number of those surrounding it are zoned LC, it is adjacent to a well-maintained, quiet neighborhood of single-family homes that have been there for many years before this particular business and most others in the immediate area existed. Even though, as stated in the report, a masonry wall exists to separate uses, the homes and surrounding environment are affected by the presence of the businesses. In addition, the height of the masonry wall is insufficient to provide adequate screening or to muffle the loud noises emanating from the operations of the businesses. Since the ground area this parcel is located on is somewhat elevated, paving of additional ground at the rear will increase drainage problems, especially to property to the south and east where stormwater floods into backyards. Increased drainage to the east will also deepen the water accumulation at the intersection of Taylor and Crestline, as well as others as it flows to the south towards Buffalo Park. The current business has not been operating in compliance with the LC conditional use restrictions, even as previously amended. This is particularly concerning, considering that in the course of its operation, the business stores and disposes of petroleum products and other hazardous substances. As previously indicated, this parcel is adjacent to a residential neighborhood. This neighborhood and others in the vicinity have already been victims of unintentional underground pollution resulting from other businesses. Extreme caution and preventative measures need to be taken to ensure this does not happen again. Even if these hazardous substances are stored behind nice enclosures or hidden from view, the potential for the contamination to the neighborhood exists.
Ma'am, your time is up. Would you like an additional 1 minute?
Yes, there are a couple of more paragraphs, please.
Okay, thank you.
Condition number 2 states the sale or rental of trailers and vehicles or trucks larger than pickups is not permitted. This is a restriction that the staff report indicates should remain in effect. The current business is already operating with vehicles and trailers larger than pickups. Large vehicles such as panel trucks, semis, large construction backhoes, etc., should continue to be prohibited. These vehicles are not concealed from view, especially the larger ones. In addition, their operation and maintenance creates offensively loud noises during the day, which consistently disturbs the peace of the neighborhood. As stated in LC Section 2D(2), visual screening of areas adjacent to residential zoning districts shall be provided to protect adjacent properties from light, debris, and noise, and to preserve adjacent property values. This restriction has not been adhered to. We submit that the current business has been operating in bad faith, and as such, will continue to do so, especially behind additional screening.
Ma'am, your time is up.
Okay.
Any questions from the commission? Seeing none, thank you.
All right, may I speak on my own behalf now?
No, no, I'm sorry, you may not.
I was reading this letter for Mr. Putnam.
Ma'am, I'm legally blind. I can't see nothing. A white piece of paper and black lines. I'm looking at 5 of you. I can only see 2 of you. I'm sorry. I'm getting mad. I'll leave.
Mr. Putnam's wife typed this up.
Ma'am, I understand that, but we received the letter ahead of time, and so we've all, or at the beginning of
Okay.
this meeting, so we had the opportunity to read it.
So you
And-
won't hear what I have to say on mine and my husband's behalf?
Ma'am, we have to abide by the policies. Thank you. Ma'am, does your husband want to speak? Oh, he's not here. Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else from the audience that would like to present on this case? Seeing none, we will bring back, agent for 2 minutes rebuttal.
Thank you, everyone, for your comments. Most of those have been addressed in the staff report as it reads. We're going to require additional screening, which is shown on our site plan here. And then also, as a motion, I would recommend that you guys also request screening on this side as well for the neighborhood's comfort. Just similar pattern of trees. Also, about the business operating in bad faith. They've been there for 1 year trying to get started up, 6 months. They were unaware of the original site plan. The uses they are trying to establish are permitted by the conditional use already. That's why we're coming in with this amended site plan here. Other than that, with the fuel tanks, they worked with the co-op and the fire department for placement. I can't speak to how they are operating them for electrical purposes. I haven't went out there and investigated that myself, but I assume that the position is all right since they've coordinated, and then also at some point everything should be in compliance for electrical. I haven't been out there, so I don't want to speak to that directly.
Okay, any questions from the commission? Mr. Blick?
A question I have is, so if approved, they're gonna have to pave if they're gonna put it on there, regardless, unless number one says they can put crushed asphalt. But as we heard from Dale, that's probably not the best solution.
Well, Dale was saying that he would not allow for traveled paths. So I think that if it was approved per just the zoning code and doesn't specifically say just paving, maybe the display areas where they're not traveling might be able to do crushed rock, but that's something that we'd have to work with on him.
I can clarify that for vehicle display, we do not allow gravel, rock. It is required to be asphalt or concrete, and that's been consistent for the entire 25 years I've worked here.
Mr. Hartman?
When the owner bought the property, were they aware of the conditional use that was on the property?
No, sir.
No?
Nope. When I was talking to the owner, well, they were not aware of the site plan is what I should say. They were aware that they were permitted to do what they were trying to do. They were not aware that they had to adhere strictly to this site plan until they were brought their violation from the code enforcement.
They actually purchased the property, or are they
Yes,
renting
sir.
it?
It's under HMH real estate, I believe.
I think that'd all be in your title work.
Any other questions by the commission? Mr. Foster?
Levi, would you please break down this note here for the area behind the building? Proposed screened vehicle and equipment storage, subject to the conditions. So what kind of vehicles and equipment?
So it will be the equipment that they are renting and selling. Per the zoning code, vehicle and equipment is just the title that we use. They don't have any personal vehicles or commercial vehicles that they're renting. It's all tool equipment. So backhoe, small ditch witch, equipment that is smaller than your standard truck. And then the subject to conditions of the con was for the surface area there. We're aware they have to do something, but that was something that we are just going to, as they progress forward with their development, as the finances make sense, they might stage it out and work with the planning department on what material they're allowed to use there. I would expect the fence to go up first, and then, as needed, the space to be developed back here.
Mr. Florence?
As of today, they're still in violation. How come they didn't address that when they got the violations from the department?
When they got the violation notice, we immediately came in, had a development review meeting, and scheduled for an amendment to the con. They can't operate in compliance at this point because that would require them to pave or rock all of this and then move everything up here. So they were just trying to get through this meeting, get something established that they can work with and the city can accept, planning department can accept, and hopefully is advantageous to the neighbors. And in that, I think that we'll have to take a look at the grading plan because that's now one of the requirements. There should be a subdivision grading plan out for this, a drainage plan, and we'll just have to reevaluate to make sure the drainage patterns are still correct for the flooding issues they're having. As you know, a lot of the backyard stuff gets hairy.
There's still equipment, small equipment, placed on their grass. How come they didn't move it off of that or to the back on the paved section?
I can't speak to is why they didn't move it to the paved section. I think that they were just operating until they could get something through, and then they were going to try to get into compliance. With the equipment they have and the circulation patterns they need, it'd probably be hard to get it all stored here. And then also up here, they have to have the minimum parking requirements for the movements they need. So right now, it'd be a difficult task to get everything on there and stay open. So instead of 4 months of no cash flow, they were just working with what they could.
Okay, Mr. Klossmeyer, and then Mr. Dool, I have you next.
Levi, have you seen the pictures that were attached to the attachment that we have?
Yes, I did, and
Have they been, has anything been addressed on these items?
yes. So I had skimmed through, and I talked to my client about it, and the car and a bunch of the scrap metal has been hauled off to scrap already. That was not part of the business. It's just incidental. They're trying to get rid of it, try to get cleaned up and get in compliance. That's not something they want to operate out of there. As to the barrels that they're referencing, the hazardous waste is handled by a company called Safety Clean. They're contracted with them. All of that is going to be inside.
It has, like, show a trailer full of scrap metals and
Yes,
some
sir.
other things around there. Has that been removed, or is that still there?
That's been removed to the scrap heap. Right. Hunter, would you mind coming up here?
I'm sorry, people, you can't speak unless you're at this podium. We're taping this. We cannot pick it up and use it for a transcript, so thank you.
Would you like the owner to address the scrap metal? He is in attendance, and he can tell you what it came from and that it's
Thank
gone
you.
now. Just state your name and address.
My name is Hunter. My address is the business address at 10303 West Central Avenue. That's not my home address. The scrap metal was removed this morning. I sent a guy to the scrapyard with the junk that was behind the building. I left before he got back with a scrap receipt to show you that it was removed.
How long had it been there?
Couple weeks maximum.
And Hunter, just for clarification, that's not a normal process of your business, correct? You're not going to just accumulate scrap metal and get it taken off there. That's an incidental thing.
It was an incidental thing.
Mr. Dool?
On this site map on the first page, the zoning is not necessarily indicated on here, but it appears that the only residential property is off the southeast corner of the subject property. Is that correct?
There you go.
Nope, there's the zoning. The property to the south is zoned residential. Most of the other stuff is zoned commercial. Although the uses, there's some other residential type uses that you've got the apartments that are adjacent to the east, and then it's business activity to the west and southwest. But even the property to the southeast is, all this is residential.
Any other questions by the commission?
A question for staff, which has to do with the fuel and propane tanks. I mean, are they allowed in this zoning? And if so, there must be some conditions being this close to residential. So how does that get handled? I guess that's my question.
We have allowed fuel storage that's ancillary to the use.
Okay.
Where it's not the primary activity, but necessary to make the use go.
And that there's a set of standards by the building code as to how that has to be installed and,
Would presume building and fire both.
okay, all right,
Mr. Warren?
My question, I understand, and maybe staff can give me some clarification, the advantage of going with paved surface, whether that be asphalt or concrete, and the advantage of that versus increased runoff that brings. Is there a compromise here where some of that would be with gravel to reduce some of the water runoff? Or are we creating a bigger water problem by requiring the entire lot to be hard surfaced and increasing water runoff? Is there a compromise here?
Well, I mean, we're enforcing what the code says, and as Scott had indicated, the code's been that way as long as we've been here. The other issues are that have issues where rock gets carried out into the street and that sort of thing.
Mr. Blick?
So Dale, quick question. So this was approved in 2012 by previous owner. They didn't pave it. So then a new owner came in. Are they required to pave that since it was, or does it just fall off?
The conditional use runs with the land.
Just runs with the land.
Yeah.
So they're based off the 2012. Then they're required to probably pave all this than what somebody else did prior.
I mean, I don't know the details on this particular one unless Dave or Scott knows more about it.
I think, this is the 2012 site plan, and it was proposed to have outdoor storage and display to the west of where the existing paving ends, and it was required at that time to be paved if it was going to be used that way. That never occurred. And so
it was already approved to do outdoor storage, but then, or
But it was-
display, but then it
Yeah.
just wasn't paved, and that's what threw up the red flag.
Yes.
Mr. Richardson?
So Dave, help me understand here. Based on comparing the two site plans, the one proposed by the current owner is less restrictive than the previous approval.
To an extent, in terms of what they're doing, but the issue is also outdoor display of the materials that, some of that stuff was required in GC zoning to modify. And I think it's important to note that in the existing conditions on the 2012-03 con, there is no modification of the paving standard. That's still a requirement. So
what is different between the two then, Dave? Can you kind of summarize that for us? Is that, why are we
Well,
having this
they're
conversation?
wanting to pave a less area,
Right.
but they want to expand for outdoor storage, and then just provide a fence screening around that with landscaping along the south side.
So the storage was not going to be allowed in the south, in the back end before?
No.
So the two issues here are increased storage that they've requested, and along with that, decreased paving.
Correct.
In their application. The staff's approval recommends the storage be allowed, but it's going to have to meet the paving requirements in essence and get the drainage problem solved. Is that a fair characterization
I think so,
of
yeah.
what the,
Except for the use of the word storage. These vehicles have to be displayed for rent or sale. They cannot be stored, can't be there to be
okay.
vehicles that
So that would
somebody
be,
might operate a business using this type of equipment.
so that'd be a little more restrictive than what
Yes.
in theory is there now on the conditional use. Okay.
But that's not correct. The existing conditional use is also only for display,
Oh,
rental
all right.
and sale.
Okay.
Mr. Warren?
Dale had a question or comment.
The last sentence says in the stat background, since the existing conditional use only allowed that use in association with vehicle repair and did not permit sale or rental of trailers or large vehicles, This amendment will address the modified use and modified site plan. So this would allow them to rent larger vehicles and trailers than what they were allowed before.
Actually, we're not recommending larger vehicles or trailers, just different vehicles that aren't passenger vehicles, but still the same size limitation and the prohibition on trailers.
All right, Mr. Warren.
I move to approve per staff recommendation, including all recommendations 1 through 6.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion to approve by Mr. Warren, a second by Mr. Blick. Other discussion? Mr. Foster.
As you look at this plan and the photographs that we've been given, and I'm familiar with this site, is there much benefit for this proposed fence screening that's shown on the west? I can see to the north the benefit, but all along the west there, is there much benefit for it? It's creating kind of a captive area there that they might be able to take drainage to and do something with, but I was originally thinking proposing that be 8-foot height, but yet I'm not seeing much of a benefit to it. Just throw that out there for discussion. I don't.
Hartman?
Just want to make a comment that when they bought the property, the conditional use was in effect. They should have known at that time that they wouldn't be in compliance, so I'm going to be not in favor of this.
Thank you.
I might answer Mr. Foster's comment that the condition number 5 requires a revised site plan. There's not anything in the additional conditions or the existing conditions that would require that area to be screened, so we'll take that into account if that's something the commission is wanting us to consider.
For discussion. Seeing none, all in favor, uh-oh, what, did I miss something?
Making sure Mr. Hartman wasn't making a motion
Oh,
when he said that. Is he just saying he's not voting for the motion?
right,
Because he said I
that's what he said. Oh, were you making a motion?
No, I was
Okay.
not making a motion.
Okay, thank you. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Aye. So let's see a show of hands that are opposed. Yes.
Opposed?
5.
Cindy? Okay. Okay. So it's,
So,
yeah. Or actually, I've got it at 751 since McKay said he was abstaining.
okay, motion carries 7-5-1.
Or is it, excuse me, 651, sorry.
6-5-1. All right, thank you. One last thing before we adjourn, I have Mary make an announcement.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Mary Hunt, Planning Department. I just wanted to remind everyone of the Special Planning Commission meeting that is scheduled 1 week from today. That would be November 8th, and it'll be here in this room beginning at 1:30 p.m. It will be the last presentation by the consulting team for the Wichita Places for People plan. They'll still work on the plan, but they won't be visiting Wichita again. And right now, we're kind of in the process of polishing the document, and we hope all of you are able to attend. I know that I've been passing out binder and then sections that you add to it, so if that has been confusing, I have fresh binders up here that have the latest and greatest information that we have to date. You're free to pick one up on your way out, and if you bring your other binder back, we'd be happy to recycle it, otherwise just keep it. So, we're really looking at this plan. This committee has been working on it for 2 years. It can be quite a game changer for the city, so I think it's really important if you're able to attend that. Should that day not work for you, the day before, Wednesday the 7th, the Urban Infill Advisory Committee will be meeting again in this room, beginning at 4 o'clock. They'll basically get the same presentation. So either one will work, but we have one just set up especially for you. So any questions on that? Yes,
Mr. Richardson.
So Mary, at the end of the special meeting, you would expect a recommendation on the consultant's proposal that goes to what?
All right, we will not expect a recommendation from you at that time. That would be later. What we will be looking at Wednesday from the committee might be a recommendation at that time if they are ready. If they are not ready, we have scheduled a subsequent meeting in December if they want to come back and discuss and have some questions answered. So once they've made a recommendation to you, then we will eventually ask you to do the same to the council.
But you don't expect that to happen a week from today?
I do not.
Thank you.
Mr. Daly.
The new binders have the most recent material, so
That's
we
correct.
can disregard if there's a difference what was in the first binder.
If you want to, yes. You do have all the most up-to-date materials, but I've been sending them to you in pieces.
Yeah.
And so if that's inconvenient, feel free to pick up a new one.
Okay, thank you.
And I might clarify, Mr. Richardson, the Planning Commission actually cannot make a recommendation at the meeting next week. It's not been advertised
Okay. All right.
appropriately for that.
Okay, thanks.
Hey, if nothing else, we are adjourned.